Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori Brame and this is Holy City Mystic. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button so that you can stick around. I am continuing on in the Yod series today, talking about a Mars Yod. I'm kind of using that slang as Mars at the apex of the Yod, where all the energy is funneled into. If you would like to know more about just what a Yod is and how to find one, you can watch my video. I'll put it up here and down here, and then that way you can be more familiar with the concept. But if you're watching this video, you already know what a Yod is, and you have Mars at the apex of your Yod, which is like right at the top of the pointy side of the triangle, and you just want to know what that means for you, or if you are a parent, what that means for your kid. So first, let's look at what Mars is in your chart. Mars is traditionally a malefic planet. You know, you think of mal like as bad or unable to, like maladaptive, maleficent, malaise is a sickness, like, you know, all these things. And so when you think of a malefic planet, it's like a bad planet. I don't believe that. I don't think any planets are bad. I mean, even Jupiter, which is like the great benefic, like, you know, everybody loves Jupiter. It can bring bad things sometimes because it's too much of a good thing. Or it can expand things that you don't necessarily want in your life. So when it comes to Mars, I love Mars. Like, Mars is actually my favorite planet. My chart is ruled by Mars. I also personally have a Mars Yod in my chart. I am a huge fan of Mars. So what Mars does is it demands of you, just like Saturn, which is the other malefic. It makes you wake up. It makes you not just check out of life and flow through it. And I love that because it brings lessons and it brings other things that are necessary for you to live the best life possible. So back to what Mars is in your astrology chart. That is where a lot of action happens. So if you have Mars in the 10th house, you might be a warrior by profession. You might also be a sports player. If it's conjunct your midheaven, you probably have like some kind of like public appearance, like some kind of professional life that has to do with either your body or like some kind of fighting, like advocating for somebody else, or maybe being in the military or something like that, like something that has a reflection on Mars as the warrior. So it's where you take action in your life. It's where you have like maybe a lot of conflict and other stuff like that. Like, you know, if you have Mars in your 7th house, some people say that it is a signature for you having an abusive partner in the relationship. But it could also mean not necessarily an abusive partner, but someone where there's a lot of back and forth, like there's high energy there, where you have a lot of confrontation, not necessarily negative confrontation, just a lot of honest conversations. So Mars as the apex of your Yod, that means that Mars is in a very irritated position in your chart. It doesn't get along with two planets that get along with each other. And so there's just a lot of focus on it. There's a lot where you just can't get away from this whole action thing, where it's like the actions you take are either being held back or they're not turning out just like you planned or something. And so you have to be very, very intentional about the work that you're doing. So this could mean a lot of setbacks, like a lot of things where you are taking an action and everybody else who started at the exact same place as you did, their actions are turning into something bigger than yours, where you're just like taking a step and it's almost like you got to take a couple steps back and then you have to take a few steps forward and then a few steps back, and it's just really, really frustrating. So with the Mars Yod, it builds up your drive, where you have to have the absolute top-notch perseverance of anyone else because your Mars is not getting along with so much. So you really have to focus in on what you're doing, make very intentional steps. You have to have a plan for like everything, and you have to not give up. Like it's a really hard Yod to have, and I do personally have this one, so I'm, you know, I feel for you guys. But that drive is so intense. Like, you are not going to give up. There is nothing that can keep you from fulfilling whatever that is. And it's like, you keep coming back to that. No matter how many times you felt like giving up, you just can't. Like, you literally can't. You just keep coming back to that, because that's where it comes back to that life purpose, that finger of God, where you have to fulfill this. Like, you can't not work on it. So I think it's very interesting, and you know, it's interesting too, like reading a bunch of charts and hearing people's stories. And when they do have a Mars Yod in their chart, oftentimes they did have a really rough childhood as far as their parents being like really harsh on them. You know, if you do have a kid with a Mars Yod in their chart, oftentimes they are extremely passionate. And that could mean, you know, temper tantrums out the wazoo. It could also mean like they are just like so focused on something. You know, oftentimes they're very active. They do a lot of things with their body, you know, just like being outside. You know, they might be into like sports really heavily or something like that. But oftentimes there are a lot of barriers in between that. And so, you know, maybe you have a kid who's just like always up and at him, and then he breaks a leg and he has to like, you know, take a beat for that to heal. They might also be very passionate about like, you know, working on something or doing something and have no actual talent to do it. And so all of their accomplishments are just pure bullheaded perseverance, because they don't have that natural talent, but they're going to do it. They have that Mars Yod where they're like, this is for me. This is what I absolutely have to do. And as far as, you know, parents being harder on them, it is part of that, like, you know, chicken hatching out of the egg thing, where it's like, without that struggle, a chick would not build up the strength to survive. So if you just open an egg because you know that the chick is ready to come out, it's going to die because it didn't have that initial struggle to actually get out of the egg and build up that strength. So if you do have a Mars Yod in your chart or a Mars Yod in your child's chart, physical activity is extremely important. And when you feel like you're not getting ahead in whatever the work is that you're doing, whatever that action is that you're trying to do, if you switch over to physical activity, oftentimes that will remove roadblocks. So just know that going into it. And oftentimes too, like, you know, depending on where Mars is in your chart, what house it's in, you can have like a lot of conflict there, like a lot of things that are holding you back. And you can kind of play around with the other houses and see if, you know, putting things maybe in the house opposite to it could help you. And I know that's really vague, but let me break it down. So if you have Mars in your second house and you are just really trying to make money, and it's like, you know, it's kind of holding you back a lot. There's a lot of barriers. It's, you know, Mars is a fire planet, so it's almost like you burn through money like so fast. Look over in your 8th house and see if you can pay off some debts for a while. Just like focus on that. Like, not necessarily building wealth, but, you know, just pay off some debts, or maybe look into, you know, going into business with a partner or something like that, where you know, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, starting a business together or anything. It could be like, you know, if you're on YouTube, like a video collaboration or something like that, and see if it'll loosen up some of the roadblocks you're hitting in the second house. And so you can just look at the houses and see where your Mars is, where you're hitting those roadblocks, and then look at the opposite house. So if your Mars is in the 7th house and you're just running into so many issues in your relationship and you feel like you can't move forward and it's really intense all the time and you don't love it, look back in the 1st house and being like, where are you not building yourself up? Where are you not taking care of yourself and expecting your partner to take care of you? So, you know, just look at the houses like that and see where you can kind of distribute the energy in a different way, so that not everything is focused on that roadblock where Mars is being held back, so that you can strengthen that Mars as part of your life purpose. Well, this is probably going to be one of the longer videos because I love the Mars Yod and I love talking about it because it's my favorite Yod that I have. So I hope you guys are doing well. If you would like to get a reading from me, I do offer them on Etsy. If you have any questions, please ask me in the chat and I will talk to you guys later.